Hi, so in this video we will talk about the data fetching in Next13. Previously, if we were to use server-side data fetching, we had to use some functions provided to us by Nextjs, which were get server-side props or get static props, as we can see. So if we wanted to do server-side rendering, that is fetch data on the server side on every render, pre-render, basically render the page on every render, then we had to use get server side props. But if we wanted to use static site generation, that is building the pages into HTML files at build time, and then we had to use get static props. But if you wanted to use ISR, that is incremental static regeneration, that is building the page at runtime, at build time, and then basically rebuilding it after a certain validation time period. So that could be done using get static props as well. We had to specify validation time like 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever. But it was kind of not difficult necessary, but still different, as in different than React. So but now in Next13 it has become way simpler and way obvious of how you can fetch data. So this new way of data fetching can only be done inside the app folder. So if you have Next13, but if you're still using the pages inside the pages folder, this would not work. You can use async await right inside the page component. Previously you can't use like make a function which calls an endpoint and then use await inside the component. But if you are inside the app folder, then yeah, you can do that, and it would basically do server-side rendering or whatever based on some options which we would provide, which we'll see in the next slide. And yeah, the pre-rendering mode depends upon the cache option we use. We will see in the next slide as well. So first of all, I have a next folder where I'm using Next13. Yeah, here you can see. So let's consider a page here on dashboard.js. That would this page which would route to /dashboard. If you are familiar with the new routing system, if you are not, you can check out the video which will be in the description. I talked about it. Okay, so first of all, we make a function, an async function. Then basically I'm just using fetch. This is a dummy JSON URL. I'm pretty sure you are familiar with that. And then I'm returning res.json. So I can directly now make it an async function, the component, page component, and then use await inside it. You cannot do that in regular React or regular Next for that matter. You cannot do that, but in Next13 you can do this. So I say const data is equal to await get data. I will whatever the response, I will get it here once the promise resolves, and then currently I'm just displaying it here on the client side. So if I go to /dashboard, I have the server up and running. So if I go to /dashboard, yeah, you can see that it displays the data whatever comes from the dummy endpoint. So yeah, this is pretty simple. By default, the cache option is, if I look at the cache options now, by default the cache option is force cache, which means it is caching by default. The first time I load the page, it would cache the response and then it would keep that cache. So this means that obviously the data would not update, new data is not needed. So it would be similar to get static props, where the page is built into an HTML file at build time, and then it's utilized whenever we call that specific route. It doesn't re-render on every request. So if I try to build it into static files using yarn build, we will see that the dashboard page has an HTML file. Basically it gets turned into an HTML file. So let me go. So we go to .next folder, we go to server, app, and then here's the dashboard HTML page. I load it, and yeah, here it is. It got converted into an HTML page, basically, just like in case of get static props. So now if I want to use server-side rendering, that is, I want that this data gets fetched every time I load the page. Basically the page gets re-rendered every time I make a request. I have to pass a cache option no store. So basically I don't want to use the cache, I want to send the request on every time I make the request to the page. I want to fetch the new data. So basically I can pass an option cache no store. Yeah, cache no store. So if now I try to build, it wouldn't be basic, there wouldn't be any index dot and any HTML page for dashboard now. It would be re-rendered every time we make a request by Nextjs, basically. Let's discuss the next thing. So if we want incremental static regeneration, that is, we want that it gets built into an HTML page at build time, but it should be rebuilt after a certain period of time, so that new data should be populated in it. We can use this option, and now we can pass an object with next property and then another object with revalidate option with the amount of seconds. So for this case, if I like this would build it into an HTML page at runtime, at build time, basically, and then when we would refresh that page, when we would make the request, it would still give us that HTML page, but after 10 seconds it would basically rebuild the page and send us the updated page. So kind of the best of both worlds. In this video we discussed how we can fetch data, and basically there are three ways of how we fetch data in JavaScript. And next, static site regeneration, building into a HTML page at build time. ISR, building a page at build time into an HTML page, but then rebuilding it, recalculating it, refetching the data when after a certain validation period which we specify. Then get server-side props, which basically runs on every render. So these are the three ways of which we can do those three things. If you want to utilize get static props, we can pass the cache option force cache, which is by default the case. If you want to refetch the data after every request in every render, then we can pass no store. And if we want to utilize incremental static regeneration, then we can pass the next option and then revalidate, which will be in a number of seconds, after which it should be revalidated. So I'm pretty sure you enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.